Welcome everyone to a little bit of light awaiting Moshiach. We're going to continue with the writings of the Chafetz Chaim and his approach to teaching us not to give up hope on the coming of Moshiach, even though he's delayed, even though the redemption is delayed. So he continues, regarding the matter of the fact that Mashiach hasn't come yet. There is a way of explaining it. I would say it's one way to explain it. Now, in Bereshis, in Parshas Lech Lecha, by the Bris Ben Abasarim, when Hashem makes a covenant with Abraham, the covenant between the pieces, where he tells Abraham that his children will be enslaved, that eventually Hashem will redeem them. So there is a verse that reads that Hashem says to Abraham, "V'dor revi yeshuvu heina," and the fourth generation shall return here. Kiloi sholem avon ha'amoriyad heina, for the sins of the Amorite will not yet be full until then. So, according to Rashi's commentary, Rashi explains that Hashem is saying to Abraham that it'll take 4 more generations it'll take the 4th generation before the Jewish people can enter the land. Because until then, the sin of the Amorites, which really means the sins of the Canaanites, will not yet have been filled. Which Rashi explains to mean that Hashem does not exact punishment from a nation until their sins have come to a certain point. And Hashem was telling Abraham that the sin of the Canaanites, that because of that they deserve punishment, they deserve to be destroyed, and the Jewish people taking over, the time for that will not come until the 4th generation, because their sins will not yet have reached that point of deserving the punishment until then. So the Chafetz Chaim says, you see that in that situation, there was a delay because there's a process that has to happen. And, we're going to go through some words here that I can't fully explain, but I believe, but at least the point to say here is that there's a process. The Jewish people could not enter the land of Canaan, the land of Israel, because there had to be a certain process. The Amorites, the Canaanites, had to reach a certain level of sin before they could be removed from the land. Then he continues, and that was in that situation dealing with 7 nations, the 7 Canaanite nations. Nonetheless, when Hashem wanted to fulfill the promise he made to Abraham, the seed, the family, the children of Abraham would have to wait many hundred years until the sin of the Canaanites has become complete. Now, presently, Chafetz Chaim says, the entire world needs to be cleansed. To come under the dominance of Hashem and his king and his emissary, the Melech HaMashiach, the King Mashiach, as there is a verse in Daniel that reads the following: V'lei yehei sholtan vikar umalchu v'chalamamaya umaya v'lashanaya le'yiflachun sholteni sholtan olam di lo yedei umalchusei di lo sischabal. I'll read now in English. Dominion, glory, and kingship were given to him. All peoples and nations of every language must serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that shall not pass away, and his kingship one that shall not be destroyed. But as the pasuk here says, all peoples and nations of every language must serve him. That takes a process. That takes a process that he calls lehisparer, which I believe means to be cleansed. I can't tell you exactly what that means. So if we're talking about the whole world has to now come under the dominion of Hashem, and that's going to take some time. The especially since this last galus that we're in is going to be the final exile. We know that the exile after the first Beis HaMikdash was temporary, but the redemption that will come from this present exile is going to be one that is going to be permanent. And therefore, it is necessary to rectify All the sins, all the rectifications that are needed from the part of the Jewish people from the day they became a nation, which he says, by remaining in exile, everything will be fixed. Exile is also a great cleanser, to cleanse the evil from the good. And therefore, again, what all these terms mean, I can't explain exactly, but the point is that there's a process. The world is going to, all nations of the world are going to recognize Hashem. And for that, there is a cleansing process. There's a process for them that they have to go through. For us, in order that there should be a final redemption, this will be the final redemption. There'll be no more exile. We have to rectify everything that needs to be rectified from our part, which happens through our stay in exile. So the Chavetz Chaim's point is, just like we find the Jewish people cannot enter the land of Canaan until there was a process that had to take place with those inhabiting the land of Canaan, and there was only 7 nations. Therefore, when it comes to the entire world that has to now come under the dominion of Hashem, Hashem represented by the King Moshiach, everyone needs to become subservient to him. The Jewish people need to go through the process of never being exiled again. All this is a process. It's a process that takes time. It's a process of cleansing. It's a process of rectification, and it takes time. That is an explanation to why it could take so long. But then he continues, but at the same time, which is really interesting, not to give up hope. Not to give up hope because of the fact that there's a delay. And he mentions, as he has mentioned before, we know the prophet already told us about the delay, and he said, even if it delays, wait for it shall surely come. Nothing from Hashem's words will ever go to waste, will never come to a point of not being fulfilled. As we say in the blessings that follow the Haftarah every Shabbos. And one thing from your words, shall never be returned back empty. And all the more so, we're talking about this principle of a redemption, that where the prophets are filled with it, the words of our sages in the Talmud are filled with the concept of redemption, and it is one of our primary principles of our faith, as we've mentioned. One of the 13 principles of faith, enumerated by Rambam, by Maimonides, is the coming of Mashiach. And in the first Baruch Shemona Esrei we say, maybe Goel of Ne'ev, he brings a redeemer to their children's children. So we have so much telling us not to give up hope. And then he continues, and all the more so where it's in a generation that he describes his generation, a generation that was so suffering physically, materially, spiritually, where there's a need for Mashiach. The Chavetz Chaim already told us that's the time that we say to Hashem, we need Mashiach, and therefore that's a reason for Hashem to send Mashiach. And therefore he says at the end, "Bevadai aleinu lamoid hachin." We have to stand ready, Yeshua, and to hope for the salvation. And as we mentioned the verse from Habakkuk, where the prophet says, "Chakeloi, wait for him." One has to stand ready, like you're waiting for someone that you're expecting to come. And then he concludes this paragraph, and who knows, at this time, maybe he's right around the corner. And that's something we have to think about for ourselves too. There's lots for us to think about. There's lots going on in our lives, lots going on in the lives of the Jewish people all around the world. We need Hashem, we need redemption. And that's another reason for the redemption to come. And although there is a process that's going on, Hashem will take care of the process. If the process needs to be done, it'll get done. And whenever he decides to send Moshiach, he'll send Moshiach, it'll get done, and we have to wait. Never to give up, but keep on waiting. And as he says, who knows? Maybe he's right around the corner. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful Shabbos.